In this video, we are discussing how to use math and statistics to help us predict NFL games throughout the course of the season. Now, it's week 3, and we've already done this for week 1 and week 2. And if it's your first time watching, I'm going to briefly go over how the model works, what our prediction accuracy has been over the past 2 weeks, and then give our predictions for this week, talk about some changes that I'm going to make, and things that are going to happen in the future. So let's get right into it. So here we are in our Excel version of the model, and this is our main selector screen. I'm gonna briefly walk through how the model works. So basically what we've done is we've taken the raw data from the NFL seasons from 2024 and everything that has happened in 2025, and we split the games up. This is every single game. And we've been able to take this information along with the quarterback ratings from those games, and we've been able to assign each team a strength rating in this tab here. Let me zoom in so you guys can get a better view. We've been able to assign each team a strength rating based on how many points they score on average at home versus away, and compare that to the league average to assign them a strength rating. And all of these ratings are weighted, meaning that the more recent the game is, the more weight that it's going to have on the effect of how we judge them. Same thing with quarterbacks. So I have all the quarterbacks that started and got assigned a QBR over the 2024 and 2025 season here. We've averaged that out. We have assigned them a Z-score and ranked them out, gave them an impact rating, and all of those things are tying into basically how our model is predicting these games. So this is the main screen, but let's just go to outcomes. So let's talk about what has happened last week. So last week was week 2, and we had a 75% accuracy rating from our prediction model. Now, some of these were obvious games, like you have the Bills versus the Jets. The Bills winning that isn't a surprise to anyone, where some of these other games might have been a little more surprising, and maybe your average person wouldn't have thought that, for example, the Broncos versus Colts, that the Colts were going to win that game. That's one that I didn't personally think was going to hit, but it hit, and that's why we can rely on statistics and mathematics to help us make judgments in things with uncertain outcomes, right? Now, the most recent feature that I've added to this Excel version of this model is an odds calculator, which compares our predictions to a sportsbook's predictions. And if you're not familiar with how it works, sportsbooks set these odds, which implies a probability of what they think is going to happen. You're able to take those odds, take out the vig or juice, which is the spread that they add, so they make money regardless of what happens. We've compared that to our model probability, what we think our model thinks is going to happen versus what they think is going to happen. And then from there, you're able to see if a certain bet has any sort of positive expected value, which is where you find edge. And those are obviously the bets that you want to place, because if we go back to what actually happened, you hit 75% of the time. If you have proper bankroll management, then you're going to be making money, which ultimately is the whole point of this prediction model. We're trying to find edge so we can beat the sports books. So this is what happened. These were the outcomes of week 2. I'm not going to spend too long. If you would like to pause and, maybe you had your own judgment of what happened versus, what actually went down. Everybody has their own opinion. But here we're using a quantitative method to make these decisions, not necessarily a qualitative one, which would be our own opinion. Scrolling down to week 3. So in previous videos, I went one by one, but I think it's just going to be easier to have the summary up. And I had a comment on my last video that said, just summarize it to save time. So here's the summary of what our model thinks is going to happen for each matchup. Obviously, this game has already passed, so that's why the outcome is filled. Now, obviously, you can pause the video and maybe your judgment says something different from the model. And keep in mind that this model isn't 100% accurate. It isn't a crystal ball that can see into the future. It's something that we use based on all the factors that we discussed. Now, I would like to talk briefly about what is going to be changing coming forward, because professional sports books, they have different features and they have much more information going into their models than we do, obviously. So those are things that we're going to want to iterate on and add to this model, but it's going to be very hard to do that within the confines of Excel. So this prediction model is going to have to go to code and go to Python, which is going to take me a couple weeks to build out. We're going to be adding things like things that I read that sports books have that we don't, obviously, is more than just three metrics. They have impact rating for every single position. So if a receiver gets injured, they know how much, or they have an estimate of how much that receiver impacts the game, which adjusts the odds of the outcome, which is obviously realistic. They have weather impacts. They have every single position of the game in their models, which makes it much more complex, which is harder to do in Excel, right? They have a lot more data on quarterback performance. They have per play expected value. They have outcomes per drive, things like that. And that's all more advanced statistical things that we want to integrate into the model. But to do that, it's easier to do in code than to do in this Excel version. So that's what the transition is going to be. Probably for week 4 and week 5, we still might be using this same version of the model, but just know I'm going to be working on the other version. It's just going to take some time, and then I have to figure out a way to get access to that information, because not all of it is free, but no worries, no problem. So that's basically it. That's basically the conclusion of the video. I just want to keep it short, brief, sweet. There are our predictions. You can go back, test it against your own knowledge. Maybe you have your own model, or you're just somebody who wants to make bets, make some money. You can see what we think is going to happen. And over the past 2 weeks, we've hit with a 75% accuracy. So this model has been good, but it obviously has a lot of flaws and needs a lot more information to make this thing rock solid, which is what we're going to be working on in the future, along with basketball coming up in a couple weeks, starting I think October. So I got a lot of work to do. I'm gonna still make the videos, I'm gonna still keep the predictions, but I don't think there's gonna be any more iterations on the Excel version of this model, which is exciting because we're moving on to a much more robust, professional version. Anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see those changes coming up, and I'll see you in the next video.